Welcome back, Shalloners, and welcome, Swifties. That's right, today we're going to talk about Taylor Swift and her upcoming Netflix documentary, Miss Americana. And true, the doc doesn't drop until January 31st, but reviewers have already gotten their grubby little paws on it and have excerpted some cool stuff, well, telling things that we're going to break down and analyze, because I know you saw the title of this video, How to Be Manipulative, How to Make People Believe You When You're Lying. Oh, we're going to break it down and talk about it. But first, just want to remind you guys to follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO, because you might notice that this isn't my usual setup. This is not my apartment in New York City. No, it's a chateau in France. This is part of my room. I have my own library. I am on the Trend 45 trip, and you guys have heard me talk about it before. It's basically a content-focused travel company. Like, you know when you go on vacation, you're like, wow, I really wish my Aunt Julie hadn't bungled that picture of me in front of the Eiffel Tower and it was just like perfect. This solves that. This trip is so fun, and it's like a group travel trip, and they bring like 10 photographers. So all of your shots are incredible. It's great if you want to be an influencer or do fashion, just want some dope trips to your vacation, because let's be honest, Aunt Julie, you don't know what you're doing. You're holding the camera upside down. Don't tell me where to press. You don't know how to do a burst? Ha! So follow me on ShallonXO so you can follow along on the adventures and virtually take yourself to the south of France and then back to Paris. Also, if you have a love question, find me on my website, shallonlester.com, and click Get Help. So Taylor, this documentary came out and people have been so excited about this because Taylor's been really sort of MIA for the past year or so. But when she's come out recently, we've done some videos on this, she hasn't exactly come out swinging. I mean, in her mind, she has. But to her fans, even her most ardent fans, me, and to her not so ardent fans, it just seems like everything she's doing is either very self-aggrandizing, like that unbearable Billboard Woman of the Decade acceptance speech. You can watch the video on that right here. And like her feud with Scooter Braun, it seems like a lot of victimization and self-aggrandizing, which is a very strange combo, right? But we've talked about how victim mentality can create a bully. And we've used Taylor as a prime example. But this documentary, we were all sort of hoping it would be like an open book into her life, because that's how we sort of think of Taylor, as like this person who's really like honest about her breakups and she puts them in the song and blah, blah, blah. And that's what we loved about her. Like, that's why we all fell in love with Taylor Swift, because she was so like real, and it was just like, that is me as well at a bar, just like crying into my drink over this guy and blah, blah, blah. I didn't come to my birthday. And it's like she's moved further and further away from that and sort of retreated into this self-mythology, really. And that she's not really that vulnerable, open chick that we know and love anymore. And like, I get it. That's how fame can be. You cannot be that raw and open when, number one, you're dating celebrities and they don't like it if you write a song about them. Don't like it, and call it like Dear John. Want to call it like John Mayer, social security number 58291. So everyone was excited for this documentary, but you know what? We're going to read the reviews of it later. Actually, no. We're going to read the reviews of it now, because they are incredible in how not flattering they are. I love a good negative review. You know, who doesn't? I mean, we're all such monsters, but because people get so much more creative and they use such better adjectives. So critics, this is kind of a roundup the Daily Mail came up with. People are overall saying that the documentary is very staged and very calculated, right? And isn't that the opposite of what a documentary should be? It should be just like raw, naked, especially because we're all used to reality shows at this point, where we saw Kourtney Kardashian's placenta, for God's sakes. Like, so the New York Post said, if you think the moon landing was staged, just wait till you see Miss Americana. Most of the film is more wooden than Pinocchio. Something cynical crept into my head while watching, said Vanity Fair. It was an apprehension about just how managed this whole thing is, just how precise it is in its mythology. Whoa, that's good. Slate said, the objection to Miss Americana will be that it is just Swift's latest and perhaps canniest calculation. Do you notice a theme here? Calculated, calculated, calculated. And what have we said about Taylor Swift for so long? She has these machinations that are becoming more and more transparent. You know, but we're going to get into that about how to be a good manipulator. But right now we can talk about it because she's working against herself. Because in order to be a good manipulator, you have to make people think you're telling the truth. And does she in this? We'll get there. Oh, I don't want to skip ahead. And another critic said, much of Swift's music is confessional, but rarely raw. And I'm like, wow. Even if she's chewing on a burrito and battling melodies around with collaborators, she's performing for the camera, delivering dialogue on the heightened wavelength of something. That's interesting. It's like, we don't really get to see the raw, naked Taylor. And remember when she would like have fans at her house and she would bake them cookies and she would hug everyone? Like, that's what we loved about her, the accessibility. Because what is charm? I've talked about this before. Charm is accessibility, and accessibility is warmth. And Taylor seems to be getting colder. So now it brings me to the thing I want to point out most specifically in this video, in this documentary. Taylor talking about her eating disorder. Why are we going to talk about that? Why are we going to talk about it? Are we going to talk about her body? No, I don't care. She looked good then. She looks good now. She can look good whenever. It doesn't matter. But what I thought was interesting is how this was the only thing she really talked about much in the documentary at all. She talked a little bit more about politics. She talked about Joe Alwyn 0.0 times. And it's, I mean, you see them hug and like leave a concert together. But what's frustrating is like, girl, you built your career off your love life. You know what I mean? And I understand, certainly given what I do, that eventually in your career, you kind of do have to pivot into like new points of view and things that you're going to amplify and other things you're going to downplay because maybe it doesn't feel right anymore. But she could have given something. Like, you can talk about your boyfriend without being like, his penis is 8.5 inches. We fought about something else last night. I hate his mother. Like, you don't have to like really spill the secrets. She could be like, you know what? He's great. And we love to do this. We love to go camping. We love to go golfing. He makes me great eggs Benedict. Something. Because if you're going to do a documentary, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound, as my grandmother says. It means like, if you're going to do it all the way. And if you're in it a little bit, you're in it all the way. So you might as well just commit. But I want to talk about her and her eating disorder and what she had to say about it specifically. She said, I thought I was supposed to feel like I was going to pass out at the end of the show or in the middle of it. Now I realize, no. If you eat food, have energy, get stronger, you can do all these shows and not feel like wrecked, basically. And when people would say like, oh, you're too thin, you're too thin. Were people saying that? I don't know. I'm not, that's not shade, but like, because she was always so thin, it's weird to me that people said anything about it. Like, she became famous as a teenager and she just stayed that same body type. So it's not like she was one size and then she lost a ton of weight. Like Adele just lost a ton of weight. And, you know, people are like, she's too skinny. It's like, I don't know, if you start skinny and you are skinny. Apparently they were. So she would say, what are you talking about? Of course I eat. I exercise a lot. And I did exercise a lot, she said, but I wasn't eating. So she said she is fine now that she's a size 6. It's an American 6, a UK 10, instead of a size 00. And so she said her relationship with food was centered around a cycle of praise and punishment. It was the same psychology that I applied to everything else in my life, she said. If I was given a pat on the head, I registered that as good. If I was given punishment, I registered that as bad. Well, yes, Taylor, that's how pretty much everyone registers those two things. How insightful. But this brings me to the point. Faux insight, faux revelations will make people think that you are being more genuine even when you are lying and manipulating them. What does that mean? Taylor shared just enough to get us to think she was being super, super honest and real. And she shared, I think it's very interesting that she opened up about a category that, and maybe I'm wrong about this, and maybe this is just stuff I'd never heard, but I'm a girl and I'm very into my own weight and I'm very attuned to like the weight of other people because like I look at girls who are thinner, I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I read those stories. So-and-so's too thin, so-and-so's too fat. Like it sucks, you know? But I feel like I would have seen those stories. Too thin. You know how else I would have seen these stories that Taylor was too thin or too fat? I would have written them. I used to write for Star Magazine. I was the editor. And we also published Us Weekly, Life and Style, In Touch, National Enquirer. And I don't remember this being a narrative of hers, like a storyline that we would amplify. So I think it's interesting that that is what Taylor kind of chose to open up the most about in this documentary, because that tells me classic misdirection, classic case of misdirection. Do you ever watch Law and Order? And they bring it like a girl's been killed. I was a girl, of course, never a man. And they bring in like the ex-boyfriend who was like harassing her, and he's like, yo, I'm gonna send those letters. Okay, I copped you. I sent her those letters. I sent her those weird letters. Yo, but I didn't kill her. And the cops look at each other and like, yeah, I guess he didn't. Why do they have that reaction? Why aren't they like, well, no, you very well might have because you did one thing. Because it's misdirection. If you cop to something minor, people think that you're being truthful when you deny something major. This is a psychological principle, right? You ever get in trouble with your parents? It's like, all right, I left some towels on the bed, but I didn't hit my brother. I did both, you know? So it gives people the illusion that you're being honest, and it just in that instant, you get lulled into this false sense of trust for a person, so they swoop in and blindside you with a lie. And I think that's what Taylor did in this documentary. Not that she was lying. I don't think she was lying about anything, but she was being, like the review said, calculated. We won't even say manipulative, but we're going to talk about how this can be used in your life in terms of actual manipulation. But she was being very calculated. If you want to call that manipulation, whatever. She talked about something that maybe wasn't that big of a deal, or maybe like wasn't that unique. Like, girl, you are a pop star. Like, people are going to have shit to say about how you look. That is I'm not saying it's right at all, but that is the reality. So if you're like, wait a minute, I felt good when people praised me and bad when people said bad stuff. No shit. Like, welcome to, that's just being a human. Forget a pop star. That's being a human. And this was another case of her using the public to justify why she does everything, right? So this talk about the eating disorder had a dual purpose. Number one, it made us think that, oh, this is just a really raw, naked, honest documentary. No, it's not. The rest of it, many journalists agree that this was a very staged and very calculated PR stunt, basically. It was just a big ad. And then hopefully this would distract us from the fact that she doesn't really reveal much of anything else about her life insofar about what people want to know. The boyfriend, the feud with Scooter Braun that she literally never shuts up about. If she really wanted to get her fans on her side, dude, this was the time. She could have been crying about it and miserable and blah, 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 blah. As far as I know, there's nothing in there about Scooter. So that's, to me, that feels like a weird missed opportunity. But then again, that goes back to, it's like, well, maybe this thing with Scooter Braun isn't that real. Maybe Scooter was actually right. He's a garbage person. Let's just get that out there. But there has been a lot of back and forth that, like, she had the opportunity to buy her masters and she simply didn't win the bid. Like, you know, she just didn't bid high enough and she didn't get them. And then she absolutely knew that they were being sold. Her dad is on the board of that record label. There's no way she didn't know. But we've done videos of that too. So maybe that's why she didn't exactly go into it a lot, because it would shine through that maybe there wasn't a lot of substance there. Maybe beneath the surface of that feud, there was just more surface. But it had another purpose, to also legitimize that feud, right? Because Taylor's whole sort of vibe lately, like we talked about in her Billboard acceptance speech, was, look what you made me do. She talked on and on and on about how critics and the reviews of her album made her swing completely to the other side when doing the other album, and then completely to this side, and everything she did, and all of her friends were, and who she dated, and whether or not she went into the house. It was not her. It was the critics. It was the big bad world weighing in. She has no personal power. Whoop. But then in the speech, she's like, I did all this myself, you motherfuckers. Wasn't the record label. She thanked no one. Remember, she thanked literally not one person. Not her mom, not God, not her manager, not her touring person. Nobody. So as we said then, it's like, well, which is it, Taylor? Are you a victim, or are you like wielding your power and your success alone in this world? So her in this documentary, again talking about how it's the public influences how I felt about myself and my very body. That plays into her overall narrative of, I don't have any control, I'm just a little, I don't know. Number one, no, you're not, Taylor. You're one of the smartest businesswomen in show business. Like, she is a genius. Like, financially and business. She's a genius. I give her so many props. She's a great songwriter. She's a great musician. So you're not this little lamb lost in the woods. And it's almost like the girl who cried wolf. Because if she didn't have this constant narrative of like, I'm just a kite in a windy sky, I'd be like, you know what? Damn, yeah. It would be agony to have people talk about your body and take unflattering pictures of you. Like, I see the comments people leave me and I'm like, it's horrifying. You know, it's horrifying. But she's just said this so many times that it's like, I believe this eating disorder is 100% real. Like, I believe everything that she's saying, you know, that it affected her like that. But it's just a shame that she has spent so long crafting a narrative of crying wolf about other things that she actually did have a lot more control over. You know, it's like by the time we got to this documentary, Taylor, girl, you lost us a long time ago. And that sucks because as a woman and as a fan, it's like, I obviously understand what it's like to feel scrutinized for your body. Every single one of us, I mean, we all do, you know, it's terrible. So how can we learn from this and basically learn how to be a better liar? Well, it's like I said, if you're going to confess to something, right? Confess to a little, not the whole thing. If you guys listen to my podcast, Girl on Top, it's out every Wednesday, I answer your questions from the week. I don't focus on celebrity stuff. And recently, one of you ladies, said that you made out with your friend's boyfriend while she's studying abroad, and so she's out of the country, and you like think she might be like onto me. She's suspicious. She sent me some vague text message. I don't know if I should come clean. I don't know what I should say. And I gave the advice of like either deny till you die or come completely clean. But now I'm kind of rethinking that after this Taylor Swift thing, because it's like, you know what? This is a better strategy. You cop to a little. It's like, you know what? Yeah, we were like out at the bar together and he might have like whispered something and someone thought they saw something crazy, but like, no, we didn't make out. Because that gives someone a foothold of plausibility, right? Because people might not want to think that you're lying or that you're guilty of something. So if you can give them a foothold of plausibility that you're not, that's going to work in your favor. But maybe somebody does want to think that you're guilty, like the cops in the Law and Order example. You can also use that to your advantage because you got to hold out a little bit. It's like, I didn't send her those letters, man. It's like, Tony, your fingerprints are all over it. All right, man. Oh, God, I sent the letters, you know? And then it feels like a larger confession and you amplify it. Oh, fine. I locked the keys in the car. Never mind the fact that you dented the bumper outside of IKEA. It's like, fine, I locked the keys in the car. God. And you act really upset about it. They're going to think that that's all there is, right? Guys do this to us all the time. Because when guys get caught, they start blubbering like children. And we think, oh, well, I guess it's all out in the open now. No, not always. So that's how you can be a better liar. But also be aware of this if you're dealing with someone in your own life. Maybe a guy who's manipulating you. Maybe a friend who you can't really trust. Maybe even a parent or a coworker. Oh, did you do that TPS report? Really? Okay. Don't be afraid to keep pressing. And also, don't be impressed with their first confession, right? Oh, okay, you locked the keys in the car. I'm listening. Even if people aren't guilty, if you have that attitude, it's like, what else? People feel put upon, and this is like a negotiation technique, and they won't invent something else, but they will find something else to confess to. They'll be like, and Caitlyn peed in the backseat when she was drunk last night. You know, there's always something beneath the surface, because if you think someone is lying or withholding in one category, they're probably doing in a lot of others. And still waters run deep, right? So don't be bamboozled by the petite confession, right? By the little give, the little tell. If you think there's more under there, get to it, but you have to keep it together and be like, and? Like if I was the director of that documentary, I'd be like, oh, you can just sort of, that's great. Let's talk about Scooter. Let's talk about Joe. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. You know, I would not have necessarily been satisfied with that. You know what somebody said? That the people who worked on the documentary were sworn to secrecy, like probably an NDA, not like a pinky swear, for a year. They couldn't tell anyone what they were working on. Why? Like, literally, why? What was in here that was so incendiary or like a bombshell? She didn't announce she was pregnant, or that she'd secretly gotten married, or that she, you know, bought a seat on Richard Branson's space shuttle. It's like, what here was like so revelatory? Nothing. To me, not much of anything. I mean, even the eating disorder stuff, it's like, well, yeah, I imagine you were worried and anxious about your body being a pop star in the public. It's a ghastly thing. Like, yeah, I think if you sat down any female who's famous, you would have heard the exact same thing. And again, that's why it feels like less of a revelation and more like a distraction technique to fool us into thinking that she's gotten back to the old, raw, real Taylor, when actually I think she's more calculated than ever. I want to know what you guys have to think about the documentary. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you hadn't even seen it yet. And I also want to know what you think Taylor's next move should be, right? Like, should she come out with a more new album? Should she kind of disappear for a while? Whatever. Like I said, follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO and follow along on my adventures here in France. And be sure to listen to my podcast, Girl on Top. Sorry, I'm tired. I have a cold. Be sure to listen to my podcast, Girl on Top, out every Wednesday, every place podcasts are found.